The wealth spectrum explains to each of us at any moment in time where we are. So whereas our wealth dynamics profile is who we are, and it's something that really we're born with and that we fall more and more into the more we get into flow. And the less we get into flow, the more we end up kind of bouncing through all the different roles. But like any game, the minute that you actually decide that's the game you're going to play, and you continue to play that game and you find the mentors around that game, it allows you to become more and more of who you're meant to be. Well, you'll find that as you become that, you actually move through the wealth spectrum. And the wealth spectrum is something we didn't learn at school. The wealth spectrum is something that becomes self-evident once it actually gets explained. And the fact that at any moment you're going to be at a place where the solutions you need to have must come from that same place. And the best way of explaining the wealth spectrum is by seeing, if you look at light, how light gets broken up into a visible spectrum of 7 colors. How there is one below red, which is infrared, so it's below the scales before you're even into the wealth spectrum, and one above violet, which is ultraviolet as well. And just to kind of touch on an element of each of them, and you may, as you're listening to this, kind of get a sense of where you are right now. The first one, which is infrared. Infrared is part of something we call the foundation prism, because if you think of light coming through it, then this is the one that at this frequency, and it is about a frequency, the way that we're operating from everything physically, the way we're thinking, the way we're operating, the way we're talking, the way we're showing up in any meeting we go to, infrared will always go boom. It will take us to a worse place every time. Best way to define infrared is the people who are ensuring that every month without fail, you are in a worse place financially than the month before. And there are many people who, in something like a credit crisis, are going to find themselves blaming others for their situation. Because infrared, the title of someone infrared is someone called a victim. Because it's not your fault, it's other people's fault. How could you know any different? No one told you. So the fundamental key here is about mindset, is about education. And the reason most people stay here, I think for most people I know who are infrared, and I've been infrared, I'd read every book that was out there on how to cut up your credit cards and how to get out of it. I'd watch Susie Orman, I would do all these things, and still I'd be an infrared. Just like I'd be there kind of watching diet videos while I'm eating a chocolate cake. And the reason for that is because, number one, you need to follow your profile to get out of infrared. Because someone who doesn't think about counting their money isn't suddenly going to do it, because if it feels like hard work, the last thing you're going to do if you're infrared is do something that feels like hard work. The second thing is you cannot do it on your own, because that's how you got into the mess in the first place. So if you're thinking, I've got to figure this out on my own, just like the idea of losing weight or getting fit, you don't do it on your own, you do it with others, where you are, as a result of that, becoming committed to a larger group. And the ways that we do this, and you're going to see at every one of these levels, without me going into the detail of it, there are specific things that work for every profile at every level, which takes you to the next level. And the most important thing of all at this level, at the infrared level, is on something which is called purpose, not passion. So it's not about passions, and it's not about purpose talking about changing the world. It's talking about purpose specifically being around what is the duty you currently have to others that's not about yourself. Because guaranteed, you get a job, you've got a big enough purpose, which is to show up at work, and you'll be there. You end up having kids, you have a big enough purpose to put food on the table that you'll go out and actually start bucking up and doing something. So for most of us at infrared, it's a mindset which is that it's okay to be sloppy because we're the only ones relying on ourselves. And I know for anyone at infrared, you wouldn't want to hear that. But fundamentally, the good news is anyone infrared can get out of it within months, provided you're working with others and provided you follow the specific steps. And even if you've been trying for years and years and years, believe me, there's ways to get out of it by actually getting into the right structure in the right way. And that's one that I really love focusing at with the right teams, because it is about those teams and how they come together. Now, by the way, once someone gets out of infrared, you get onto the spectrum, and that's where we need you, because the more of us that are actually focusing on the next level up, the better. I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker now. The red is someone who is sustainable, but only just. Because at red level, you are now someone who is ensuring that you make enough money every month to have absolutely nothing. That's kind of like, oh, zero bank account, or oh, this much in the bank, never changes year after year, exactly the same place. And if at the end of the year you've got some extra by accident, you go take a holiday. It's the same thing where you're actually saying, look, really, I can be on this planet and really be of no added value to this planet, because as long as I kind of just get through my days and I'm still okay, then that's pretty much my lot. That is not a fundamental way to live your life, because it's a way to live with zero value. Anyone who says, I don't want to do that, I want to go one step higher. Well, the next step higher, which is now the orange. The orange is the final part of this red prism. The orange is someone we call a worker. And a worker is different from just an employee, because there are some employees who are at worker level, which is at orange, but some are at a high level too. There are some who are doing meaningful work and doing things that are passionate and have purpose to them. There's others who are just getting by. And as a worker, you'll go through your whole life basically working, and it will feel like hard work. And one day you might have enough money to retire, and one day you might not. So none of these first three are sustainable from the point of view of sustaining the ecology or the growth of our communities. So now we've gone from a victim to a survivor to a worker. Frankly, at the moment, until education on wealth gets better, that's the majority of the population. So how do you get higher? You get higher by changing the paradigm, going from the red prism to the green prism. Going from orange to go to yellow, which is from one prism to the other, is to go from worker to go to player. Think about playing an instrument. It's clearly something you want to play because you love playing it. You're actually making music now, and you're playing it because you've got a rhythm to it, and you've got a way that as long as you're playing it, you're creating music in your life. The only problem with that is that just like someone who's self-employed, there's specific things that allow you to do that, but the minute you stop playing is the minute you go back down to zero again, is the minute that all of a sudden the music stops. So there's some of us who goes, well, I'm happy to do that all my life because I'm going to play something I love, I'm going to become an expert at it, I'm going to understand the links I have with others now, and this is where we get into enterprise value. Why this is so important is that whereas the first three are about how you use your wealth dynamics internally on yourself, now you're looking at how you use your wealth dynamics externally with others, how you're playing the game with others as well, because you need a team at that yellow level. So if you say, okay, so I'm yellow level, and I like that idea of being a player, but what's the next step up? How do I actually play it in such a way I'm now playing with others? Then that's taking you from player to performer. And performer is now green level. From yellow to green, green is now, if you think about heart as opposed to will, green is where you're now not saying, well, how can I make money, but how can I help you make money? It's where you've gone from someone who's a player playing one instrument to a performer where you're a band playing for an audience. So then you say, okay, well, I've got my high-performing team. I know that this is no longer a matter which is one level down, where I say this is about one person doing everything. It's now at one level up, which is every person doing one thing. And now I'm at that level. Well, at that level, to go to the next one up, where you can actually now have multiple businesses or multiple investments, is the difference again of night and day going from someone who's a performer to someone who's a conductor. That's blue level. A conductor doesn't even play an instrument. A conductor doesn't even face the audience. They turn around and face their performers. So does that mean I just let go of everything and just do it? No, that's abdication. There's ways that you can step up by actually performing in what you need to perform in, while at the same time starting to build the experience at capital value, which is what a conductor is all about. They actually speak a different language, which is not the cash flow language as much as the balance sheet language. And the most important thing is a conductor doesn't jam. Great performers know how to jam, so people get impressed and wowed by just the fact that you can just get up and just do what you do. But that is not what a conductor does. They start with the score, and they make sure that everyone's not jamming, but everyone's following the score. A musical score, the score of the orchestra, the score of your business. So what is the rhythm you're creating, the scores that you're creating in such a way that everyone's prepared for it, because it's at a different pace, and it allows you to focus more at the tempo than to focus at just the brilliance of what it is that you can create on your own. That's conductor, and that basically makes up our entire enterprise industry that we have around the world, which creates all the enterprise that you see. Every one of us can play that game, but we have to earn our way into it. And if you say, well, are there three more above there? Yes, there are three more. In fact, the three more above is basically where you're going to find all the billionaires. You're going to find that, in fact, they can start playing with something called trust. You find at a high level that all of the things that we see around us, including the currencies we use, including the taxes we pay, including the ecosystems we show up in and the technology we use, have all been created at the high level, which is called the alchemy prism. And as you're going through these six and you find out which one you are, you may already, if you've already got multiple businesses, you're already a multimillionaire, you may already find that you're actually one of the top three. And if you're not, you might be fascinated to find out more about these top three, because when there is a crisis that takes place, a credit crisis, it's going to be something that happened higher up, which actually affects all of us now. Because when you change the music, when you change the composition, no matter how good a player you are, you're going to find all of a sudden the rules change. You're going to find that things like poverty. Poverty actually can only be solved not at the level of someone who's a player or performer, but can only be solved at a high level in the alchemy prism, at the level of a composer. And so you can find out more about these, but I hope that there's already